Hey everyone, Justin here. I just got Zwift up and running on my triathlon bike at home for under 150 bucks, all in, including some pretty accurate power measurements. And I want to talk to you about how I did that today. So real quick primer, if you're not familiar with either Zwift or TrainerRoad or any of the other apps, essentially what they are is they allow you to use your bike and a stationary bike trainer at home to either do workouts or ride with friends online. The fundamental goal of any of these indoor training apps and services is to make indoor training more fun and to get you fitter. The only real problem to a lot of these services is if you start looking at a lot of the trainers that are recommended for them, you're gonna pretty quickly notice that a lot of them are like $1,000. I don't want to spend $1,000. I don't even know how much I'm going to use indoor training. I live in a warm part of the country and I like riding outside. So there's two real types of indoor bike trainers. They're so-called dumb trainers and smart trainers. Dumb trainers are probably the ones that most people have been familiar with for most of cycling history. It's essentially something that looks kind of like this that you can attach your bike to. It has some sort of resistance unit that provides pressure against the tire. The fancier ones are essentially electric. Big difference here is they can actually push back against you. The cool thing about those expensive bike trainers is something like Zwift, if it rides up a virtual hill, the trainer will actually push back against you and force you to work harder. That said, these dumb trainers have actually come a long way and they have some functionality that I don't think a lot of people are aware of, and that specifically is what we're going to talk about. So, step one, you need to get yourself a trainer. I recommend getting a fluid trainer. Some of them use magnets to provide resistance, and some of them, like this Kinetic, there's a fluid in here. The difference is this fluid provides a much more realistic road feel. Essentially what that comes down to is if you stop pedaling outside, you don't come to an immediate stop, right? You kind of coast down slowly. A lot of these super cheap $50, $75 magnetic trainers, if you stop pedaling, you basically come to a standstill right away. Feels like you've lost all your momentum. It feels like you're starting from a standstill, and that's really annoying. So how do we make this an interesting, good experience for Zwift or TrainerRoad? So there's actually kind of two options here to make a dumb trainer work well with Zwift. One's better than the other one. So option one is called a spin down test. The way it works is basically you buy a speed sensor, possibly a cadence sensor that connects onto your rear wheel. You connect your bike to the trainer, you pedal up to a certain speed, and then Zwift will time how long it takes after you stop pedaling, come to zero, and it will make an estimation of your trainer, and it will try to attempt to calculate how much power you're putting out. If you're looking to do like actual power-based training, it's probably borderline. Second limitation, because Zwift knows that it's only a limitation, they add some limits too. It will only go up to 400 watts. Even if you're not a super strong rider, a lot of people can hit 400 watts. If you exceed that 400 watts, you're still getting the fitness for it, but it's not translating in-game, and that's not an ideal. The second option, and this is where it gets actually pretty cool, is some trainers, link below, will allow you to get like an add-on device, like this little box here, and then they will connect to a magnet on the roller wheel. And Zwift and the manufacturers have worked together to essentially create a power curve based on how many RPM this wheel is turning. Zwift can figure out exactly, down to a couple of percent, how much power you are outputting. Now, it's not as good as actual power like a power pedal or a power hub. It's not as good or as accurate or as responsive as the smart trainers like we talked about, but we're saving $900, and that's what this is about. So a couple cons, like I said, they're not as responsive. So if you are going up for a really big acceleration and you start accelerating and you put like 800 watts into the pedal, you're working really, really hard. This is only tracking actual rotation. So even though you are putting like 800 watts in, it is only beginning to rotate faster. So it's only going to actually track up to the measure that this ultimately spins up to. So the cool thing about this combo is this doesn't have that 400 watt limit because Zwift has worked with Kurt and they know how many watts this is going up to. Like I said, it's not super responsive, but in terms of just Zwifting and doing your training or racing on Zwift, setup right here will get you as strong as something like a Wahoo KICKR. If your goal is to get fit and strong cheaply, this is what's going to do it. So here's how we did it super cheap. These Kurt Kinetic trainers have been around forever, and you can pick them up crazy cheap and used on Craigslist all the time. Obviously do some tests, you know, make sure it spins smoothly, but if it does, you're probably good to go. The only thing you need to pay attention to is you want to get one that has this little insert for a magnet right here. If it doesn't have the magnet in it, that's fine. We can get a magnet and you can add it in there, but you want to make sure that you get a Kurt Kinetic that has the hole for the actual magnet. The really old ones don't. Next, these little wireless adapters right here. So there's a couple of different versions of these little adapters. There's version 2 that most people use. They just came out with a version 3 that adds a little bit more wireless connectivity, but you're looking between $40 and $50 for those. So I was lucky enough to get this front wheel riser block included in that 120 bucks. If you're not that lucky, of course you can go buy one, but if you want to save some money, just use a phone book. All right, and lastly, you need some way to connect your the power transmitter to the device that you're using Zwift on. So generally speaking, Apple devices are a little more compatible, either iPhones, iPads, or MacBooks, or even actually Apple TVs. You might need to get some sort of Bluetooth adapter or an Ant Plus adapter. You're looking at another $20 to $40 here. All right, and lastly, a fan is not optional. Don't skimp out. Don't buy the like 8-inch little desk fan things. You need a fan that moves some air. Let's go ahead and get my bike on the trainer, get changed into some bike clothes, and give you a quick tour of Zwift and show you how it works. All right, so once you've got Zwift on, it's going to ask you to find your power meter or any sort of device that you're using. And for this, all I need to do is actually just pedal a little bit. I'm just going to start pedaling. It found the power source, which is generating 22 watts, as well as the cadence. Little pro tip, use that 850 bucks that you saved. Buy yourself a fan with a remote. I'm going to leave the fan off for most of this so you guys can actually hear me, but you'll thank me on this. All right, so I've got Zwift up and running on the computer. Start to put a little bit of power into the bike, maybe shift into the big ring here. And just that easy, we are Zwifting for $150. All right, I talked earlier about the responsiveness of this. What I'm gonna do is put the bike in a harder gear, let you watch the screen and listen, and you'll hear when I begin to pedal harder. Watch the numbers on the screen. That'll give you an idea of how quickly it reacts. All right. All right, and one more time. And back down. All right, so in conclusion, I'm not here to tell you that this $150 setup is better than like a $1,000 setup. But if you're looking to get into Zwifting, you don't need to spend that you see people throw around. I hope that helped. If you have any questions, feel free to leave it down below. If you want to add me on Zwift, it's Justin Horn. With that said, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Subscribe if you want to come back for more, and I'll see you on the next one.